Does Mike White do it again? That's exactly what we're going to try and figure out here. A little bit of DFS, a little bit of betting as well here at WinDailySports.com, getting you set for the Thursday night game between the Colts and the Jets. My name is John Jansen. Follow me as you see there at JJansen34. Make sure this is all sponsored by the Sharp app. Download the Sharp app. Go to sharp.link, and you can find all the ways to download the Sharp app, whether that is the Google Play Store or the Apple App Store, wherever you get your apps. Also, 1 week free trial, WDS.1/live week. One of the things that I like to use a lot is the optimizer. I'm going to be using that and referencing that during the show today. And so you can use that as well with the 1 week free trial, WDS.1/live week. Also, that link will be in the description below on our YouTube channel, and subscribe to our YouTube channel as well. So that's the big question, right? We're trying to figure out, where does Mike White kind of fit in all of this as we get ready for tonight's game. I will start out, I very clearly, now this one, in terms of DFS, you're going to have to lean Indianapolis here. You're going to have to lean a lot of Indy. So I'll talk about that and some of the players that I like. And there is one that keeps popping off in the optimizer that we can get for some salary relief. So we're going to look at that as well. I do have I like the Colts today in terms of betting. So that one real quick. I like the Colts at 10. It's one thing that Mike White was able to do that at home, going up against Cincinnati, where they didn't really have much on him and what the Jets would do. And they kind of caught, I think, Cincinnati by surprise, and Cincinnati sleeping after Cincinnati also had a big win against Baltimore the week before. I don't think that's going to happen here. The Colts maybe can smell a little bit of, not blood in the water, but see an opportunity here with Derrick Henry out for the Titans. Okay, we have 2 games, Jets, Jaguars. Let's get these next 2. The Titans have a couple of games. I just think it's a good spot for Indy at home to really make, I think, a big statement here. And unfortunately, Mike White is going to be in the crosshairs of, A, I don't think it repeats the same performance. B, I don't think the Jets, also his supporting players, repeat the same performance. And C, the Colts, I think, are just the better team at home and have something to play for big time here. A lot of motivation to get this win after the loss to Tennessee, who is at the top of the AFC South right now. So I just think 10, it is a lot, but there's too much Mike White love here for this week. Of course, that changes a little bit when you talk about DFS. Obviously, Mike White, I know in our Showdown article, we love Mike White. I know in the optimizer, I've tried to just force him in. Mike White, to me, you kind of have to get in your lineup here. This is going to be such a game script where you're going to need to get Mike White in your lineup. But I think what I'm going to start with here is just kind of going over the players that I want the most of. And I think that also includes Michael Carter as well. This seems like a very big Michael Carter game. He's the top back there very clearly. And yes, Ty Johnson gets some of the pass catching targets, but very clearly Michael Carter is the guy. I think, for the New York Jets. And with Corey Davis out, they're probably going to have to find ways to get other players involved. Of course, you can get some wide receivers over there for the Jets, and they are going to be in a negative game script, so it's going to help some. But I think it just involves more. If you're down one of your best players in Corey Davis, you probably need to find another way to get your other best player involved. And to me, that is Michael Carter. And also, I still don't think Mike White is going to be able to just let it rip 30 to 40 times back there. They're going to need to either get a running game or at least try to get a running game involved. And it's probably going to be a lot of short, intermediate, check down passes for Mike White. I don't see much going down the field. So that leaves me to the running back. So I think Michael Carter just gets the best of both worlds there, while you have basically Ty Johnson who can get some of the pass catching. Other than that, I am not on this. And when I went to the optimizer and I kind of forced in Mike White a little bit there, Michael Carter and Mike White just seem to be the 2 guys in New York that you can get. Outside of that, I've seen some Braxton Berrios. I've seen some other things for the Jets because I've seen Keelan Cole. I know Denzel Mims, one of my buddies, Jeff Parles over at VSiN, actually has a bet on him tonight to score a touchdown at 7-1. So there are some plays here with Corey Davis out that you can go to, but I just don't think it's worth it because you're basically going to still get a large pool of New York Jets players and deciding which one's going to score, the few touchdowns that they will have. They are not going to score much. When you look at this game in terms of who's going to win, whose projected total is higher, this one is very much leaning towards the Indianapolis Colts. And Showdown is very narrative based. The narrative, to me, Indianapolis sort of dominates this game I don't see much scoring on the side of the Jets. So even though Corey Davis is out, the thing is, I would actually rather have Corey Davis in so I can know very plainly who Mike White is going to go to. But since he's out, it's anybody along the lines of Croft, Berrios, Cole, Mims. There is, I think, way too much of this Jets team now. You have to expand the player pool a little bit more for the offensive side. And I'm just not a big fan of that, knowing, or at least me assuming, Mike White doesn't have a 400-yard game again. I just think we can't go based off of what Mike White did against Cincinnati. We have to look at this as a backup quarterback on the road against a fairly good defense in the Colts. And I just don't see very many points happening for the Jets. So I'm very much off of them. I just want to go to Mike White and Michael Carter, who is clearly going to get the targets. Then after that, for Indianapolis, Michael Pittman's in a great matchup. I don't know who on the Jets is going to be able to cover Michael Pittman. Now, where I'm going to go a little bit different here, and where I think we can pivot a little bit, I would rather much go on Mike White and get a lot of his shares because Carson Wentz targets him. Carson Wentz likes to, as you could tell during the Tennessee game, take some chances down the field, even though he shouldn't. Now, they didn't connect on a few of them because Carson Wentz underthrew a few of those passes, but Carson Wentz is definitely taking those chances down the field, and you can do that against the Jets. The one thing that's a little bit difficult against the Jets is running in that interior defensive line, and the Colts are having some offensive line problems. I don't think Jonathan Taylor is a must play. In fact, I think he's a little bit of a pivot, and some of the optimizer lineups that I am seeing don't have pretty much. I have 3 lineups that I have in the optimizer right now, and all 3 of them do not include. They don't include Jonathan Taylor. It's going differently outside of Taylor. That means Pittman in most of your lineups. So I like Pittman a lot. I think Carson Wentz, that means as well you have to get involved. I think you can interchange Wentz and Pittman in the captain spot, but again, to get a little bit different, since it's probably going to be a lot of Carson Wentz in the captain spot, I'd rather go Michael Pittman, where you can get a little bit different. And I honestly would sign off here. And I don't know how much I want to do this, but I would sign off on possibly getting Michael Carter in there as well. Again, there aren't many options for the Jets. There's just one clearly good one in Michael Carter. So if you want to do that, get a little bit less on your captain spot and get Michael Carter into your lineup. He is, to me, clearly the best option that the Jets have of staying into this game. And again, Mike White checked down the ball a lot, wanted to go to more of a running game the Jets did. I just think that Mike White isn't going to be relied on to go down the field. So why take your chances with, again, guys like Cole, guys like Denzel Mims? I'd rather just get Michael Carter, who I know probably, again, the best of both worlds, getting those carries, also getting the pass targets as well. So I like Michael Pittman in there. I would sign off on Michael Carter in the captain spot as well. And Carson Wentz and Mike White, I think, are plays. Now, the one that keeps going off, and even in our DFS article as well, liked it a lot. And let's see if I can find it here, because there is one player that is popping off in the model a lot, and that is Doolin. He is 200. When it comes to the minimum, this is the stone cold minimum that keeps coming up every single time. So look, I'm not sure exactly why, but one thing I'd like to say here, one thing we like to do is trust the optimizer. Now, again, the good thing is the Jets secondary is not very good. So attacking the Jets secondary, even with a minimum guy, could give you a nice score. And again, we don't need much for that 200 to go off. So that is certainly one I would absolutely sign off on. And then you kind of have your grouping here of players you can go for. I think the Colts defense is absolutely in play here. If you want to look at the Colts and see what has happened in their game log, with their fantasy points. Yeah, Tennessee, not great, but I think you can look more along the lines of these 2 games right here, with the Indianapolis Colts getting 11 fantasy points against San Francisco, 15 against the Houston Texans. This is the score that you are likely going to, at least my narrative of where I'm going, this is likely what you're going to see. You're going to see the Colts have consistently put up 30 points. So their offense is the one that I think is able to move the ball. They're able to score. They're able to get, Michael Pittman involved a lot down the field. So I like the Colts offense. They are the projected total more than the New York Jets. So I'd rather get more of them. But that also means I'm not expecting hardly anything from this Jets offense. And so why this might also be even better than I would say maybe a 15, 11-point day, we saw Mike White throw some turnovers against Cincinnati. Like he threw some bad balls against the Bengals. I think we're kind of in for a disaster type game. That was what happened against Cincinnati to me was best case scenario. That was even way over expectations. I think it basically just caught Cincinnati off guard. Mike White is not going to catch anybody off guard. And I think he's going to end up in some bad spots. The Colts probably get up early in this game. The Jets have to be in a negative game script, which means a little bit more of Mike White throwing. Now, again, I still don't think he's going to try and take too many chances down the field. Going to be a lot of checkdowns again. But Mike White will eventually have to try and get it down the field. And that's where I think I see the mistakes happening for Mike White and the Jets. So I'm expecting disaster in this one. Of course, you could play the narrative a little bit differently. But I guess my caution is I would not go too deep into the Jets player pool because you would have to set a bunch of lineups, I think, to be able to hit on just a few of these guys. Because again, Braxton Berrios gets involved, Keelan Cole gets involved, and again, I know somebody that has a Denzel Mims touchdown ticket, so I would be very cautious of going too deep into the Jets player pool. I honestly don't think it's worth it. It's Mike White, it's Michael Carter. You can maybe get some Jamison Crowder in there as well. That's another one again, but if that's at 7,800, I just rather go again up there. I'd rather get the Colts players who are up there that I could find a little bit more consistent. Even a guy like Zach Pascal is fine in this matchup, but I think Michael Pittman is an absolute lock. You need to do it. And then also Doolin is another one that's just interesting because it keeps popping off in the optimizer. And if you want to use the optimizer, what you can do, go to wds.1/live week. That is the link to get you a 1-week free trial, which includes the optimizer. So if you want to use it the way I did, and also check out our DFS article for tonight, you can do that all at windailysports.com. This is all also sponsored by the Sharp app. Go to sharp.link and you can find ways to download the Sharp app, whether that is the Google Play Store or the Apple App Store. And you can find a bunch of plays for tonight's game, whether that is a side or a total, or whether you want to find some props in the prop market. You can do that all over at the Sharp app. I will say, again, betting, I started off with this one, but again, I love the Colts getting the 10 point or laying the 10 points here. Excuse me. I will not take the 10 with the New York Jets. This is a spot that could end up disastrous. And we've seen with the Colts before, again, bringing up with how the Colts have played on defense and bring up these scores. This is likely something that we are going to see where the Colts are very consistent on offense. And it's not because of Wentz. I think that it's kind of overreacting to a couple of things here, especially quarterbacks. We love to overreact to quarterbacks. So I think we're overreacting a lot to Carson Wentz made some big mistakes against Tennessee, some dumb mistakes, and Mike White actually played a fairly good game. That doesn't mean heading into this week, it's going to be the same thing. Carson Wentz will not be relied on to do as much as he did against Tennessee. What's going to happen is a good run game. I think Jonathan Taylor, but even Carson Wentz has a comfortable, easy time passing the ball. The pocket's not going to collapse on him. The secondary's not very good for the Jets. He's not going to have to force a lot of balls down the field. This could be a fairly easy game for Carson Wentz and the Colts in the passing game. And so I think Wentz is going to perform much better than he did against Tennessee. And you're likely going to see mostly what he did against San Francisco and Houston and even Miami. So that's fine. But also the overreaction of Mike White. Mike White, I truly don't think is any good. He had one good game, and it was an historic game too. I want to give him credit. Mike White, historic game, 400 yards in his first start. It was phenomenal. It's not going to happen again. I think to rely on that to happen again is a little bit overrated or overstated. I just don't think that you can fully expect Mike White to go out there. And even I actually think it's going to be hard for him to get half of what he did against the Cincinnati Bengals. He's on the road against a good defense. I just think he's going to be put into a lot of bad situations, which means turnovers, which means Colts good field position. Carson Wentz has been able to take advantage of that. Carson Wentz in this Colts offense able to take advantage of that. Would you start Kirk Cousins or Carson Wentz in seasonal? I would probably start Kirk Cousins. I know a little bit disappointing against Dallas, and he's on the road as well, but I would feel much more comfortable with Kirk Cousins, and I do like the matchup against Baltimore. I don't think Baltimore's defense is fixed or anything. They still have their problems, so I do like Kirk Cousins there more than Carson Wentz. Carson Wentz is fine, but I would like the ceiling a little bit more. I think that's going to be a bit more of a high-scoring game for Kirk Cousins against Baltimore. Not just the Vikings high scoring, but just a higher scoring game in general, and they might have to keep up with Lamar Jackson and that Ravens offense. So I would stick with Kirk Cousins in seasonal. I think that's much more of a safer play than Carson Wentz. You can come out here, really not have to do anything. But I do like him against the passing defense of the New York Jets. That'll do it for us here, though, for the Showdown stream. Again, for more, check out windailysports.com. WDS.1/live week is the link that you can use to get a 1-week free trial over at Win Daily Sports. And that link is in the description below over on our YouTube channel. We'll be back for more tomorrow, a position by position breakdown with myself and Jason Mizrahi. That'll go live at noon tomorrow, and you'll be able to check that out right here, Win Daily Sports.